members of this council to anyone working for this city other than Rob Schomer, Gerald McDonald, or yourself, Mr. Rogers, for the past, I won't push it all the way, but give me the past 2 years, if that's okay. Because I believe that other members do it on a regular basis. I could probably dig through my own emails and find cases where I have reached out to somebody, to ask questions or relay some information or provide information that I've heard or whatever. And this has never been an issue before. Personally, I know that you pointed out, and this wasn't a section that you read in the email string, but it was pointed out repeatedly, politics, politics, politics. And I understand why you pointed that out, and it was with reason, because this is political. There's, in my opinion, too much around this town of people making decisions, comments, and things of the like based on personalities rather than what's best in service to our city and our community. I think it's really out of control and it's ridiculous, and that's not what I came here for. So I'll go ahead and end it here. As I said, this will be made very public if that's what you guys wish to do. I personally wish they'd have followed, your advice had been followed and this had not been pushed, because you and I both know that there was nothing aggressive about this. I wasn't trying to accomplish anything, make anybody do anything. And could you tell me, in your opinion, Mr. McDonald, what is the spirit of that rule? What's the purpose, do you believe, of that rule? Is it, and I'm not saying to the letter, but I'm asking for the spirit, not the rule to the letter.
I don't know that I can really give you a good answer at this time. I think probably the best scenario is if somebody came up to me and said the speed limit's 35, this person was going 50, did they violate the code on speed? And I said yes. I mean, as I quoted in here and I told you, this has nothing to do with giving orders or instructing. It's that line in there that says, shall not deal with city employees except through the city manager. That's what I was presented with, and that's all that I looked at, and I reached the conclusion I reached.
Okay. Now, okay. With that being said, I'll say that I believe the spirit of that is simply to let members of this council know that it would be highly improper for any of us to direct any employees for any purpose, as that's not within our purview, and for obvious reasons. And I would never do such a thing. But I don't think it's to curtail communication between members of this dais and our city staff. And if that is truly the case, well, that's kind of a sad thing in my opinion. And I think that needs to be reevaluated if that's the case. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. Yes, Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Mayor, respectfully, if that is what this council's understanding as the spirit is having communication with city staff members without the full knowledge of the city manager, I would like to openly say I'm in violation of the charter as well, as I've had communication with 2 staff members within this past month, one at the grocery store and one at a private event. And none of those were directions given or orders given. It was casual conversation about city activities in the event.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Campbell.
So, Mr. McDonald, the discussions that Mr. Shaw just give, would they be in violation of the charter?
I don't know what the nature of the discussion was in his particular case. In this one, really, when I looked at this, which I did for a full day, it wasn't just off thing. Such things as I want to reach out to you concerning this, and in return, I am asking for leniency from the city. It seemed more, when it comes from a council member asking for leniency to an employee, that's more than just, in my opinion, asking how much did we spend on this, or what's the status of this. So that is where I struggled with this, and that's where I ultimately came to a conclusion that this was fell into what was meant by dealing with staff members under the charter. And that's just one man's opinion. And so, that's, I was asked, that's what I thought. And so as far as Mr. Shaw's communications at the grocery store, they have to do the same thing, look at it and noodle over it for 24 hours and then come to a conclusion.
Thank you.
Mr. Otto?
I would like to go ahead because I really dislike things being read out of context. So if you would all allow me this, I would like to go ahead and read the original email to you, if that's okay. This is word for word what I wrote. Good afternoon, Don. I wanted to reach out to you concerning the yard issue at 7019 Shull Road. I have spoken with Mrs. Lissy and gone to the property to review the situation. Mrs. Lissy has stated that the contractor that she is using for the repairs has stated that they need to wait for ground settling prior to reseeding or sodding the yard. As I walked the area, it was clear to me that the ground was not quite settled yet, as even I sank several inches stepping in certain areas. She has also forwarded me several receipts for materials to repair and improve the yard when the weather cooperates. If you would like me to forward those to you, please let me know. I asked her to clean up the weeds and overgrowth in the areas not directly affected to show goodwill, and in return, I am asking for some time and leniency from the city. She is agreeable to that. Please let me know if there's anything that I can do to assist in this situation. Mrs. Lissy was positive in her response to me, so I am happy to help in any way that I can. Thank you. If anybody's going to find fault in that, my suggestion is you probably shouldn't be on this dais. This is me reaching out to a member of the community, trying to help with a situation, and that is my public duty, in my opinion. Those are my beliefs. So.
Well, I do take offense to that.
Okay.
Because I will just go on record here and say now I think many people on this dais needs to learn what their position is as an elected official in this town.
I agree.
We make policy. It's a job of the city manager and the staff to implement that policy. On this particular case, there was an active code violation that had already been written. And since we're just going to talk about an opinion, I'm not an attorney, but I have an opinion about the spirit of that particular section of the charter. And I think it is to make sure that people on this council aren't running around the city doing favors for friends, neighbors, and family when it comes to items and issues that could be brought before some type of a violation. I would suggest that in the manner of what you did wouldn't be as harsh as this, but what would be the difference if my neighbor got a DUI and he called me up and said, Mr. Gore, I know you are in touch with the city manager who's over the police chief, and I promise I won't drink anymore. I won't drive drunk anymore if you can talk to the police chief and have this drop down to a reckless op charge and not a DUI. No, not even close. In the concept, you asked, okay, so number one, you spoke your opinion, I'm going to speak mine, so please give me my turn. Under the concept of what happens, I think that's the fine line that we all cross in the spirit of this. I don't know what the problem is in any time we're dealing with any situation like this. I think Mr. McDonald said, and I don't have any issues at all with you reaching out to people and talking to people. Trying to resolve issues as long as it's through the proper channels and you're acting as a council member, not as a staff member. And when you include Mr. Schomer in any of those communications, situations like this don't happen. I'm aggravated that we're in this situation. I'm upset that you didn't follow the proper procedure to copy the city manager when you were talking to one of his employees. All the members on this dais should know that there are three people that we hire as a council. That's the city manager, that's the clerk of council, and that's the law director. It's no problem, shouldn't be any issue clicking CC, the city manager, and what's going on. The other issue that I struggle with what Jerry had said, which still is outside of the code violation or the charter violation specifically, is the negotiation portion. And what about all the people who are under violation right now for their yards not being mowed, siding off the side of the house, gutters being removed, but aren't complaining on social media and having council members tagged in those to go out and negotiate on their behalf? So I think that's an injustice to everyone that's under a violation, quite frankly. I will just finish by saying I really wish you would have copied the city manager in a communication with the zoning officer. Mr. Campbell?
Jerry, what Mr. Otto read, is that what you based your opinion on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Otto?
In response to what you just stated, some of that I agree with. I don't think anybody needs to be influencing anyone, and that was not my intention. Obviously, I don't have a personal relationship with this resident. Additionally, I don't know who knows the background on this, but I took the time to go to her home and actually have a discussion with her. And the fact is, back in December, they had noticed a sinkhole in their front yard because not only their water line, but also their sewer line, both were leaking, and they developed a sinkhole in December. When they contacted a company for repairs, they were told they wouldn't be able to do anything until weather got better. The first action in that yard by a company that was able to come out and do anything happened on, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, February 27th was the first time. February 27th. And if anyone saw this front yard, they would understand that this is not an overnight fix. This is a big thing. They had to dig up their whole front yard and replace a couple different pipes. It was so bad that they had to replace their driveway because it was tore up in the process. This is not something that is just fixable overnight. And yes, I made a request, but my request was I asked her to help us, and in return, I would ask that we offer her some leniency, some understanding that her situation is different. It's not some standard little, she didn't mow her grass. I'm not trying to step up to the fact that she's had a car sitting on blocks for 6 months in her backyard or anything like that. This is a very, very unique situation, and it was very high in cost, and it is currently being rectified as quickly as possible. That was it, and it did have extenuating circumstances. And to our job sitting up here, in my opinion, we are not elected to write ordinances and vote on all these. We are elected as public representatives. I represent nearly 40,000 people, and I will represent them as best I can when they contact me. This isn't the first example of somebody who's reached out to me, and I've reached out to staff, and it won't be the last. At least I hope not. I hope people don't get so scared to call a member of council because they're afraid of something's going to blow up. I would like folks to know publicly, for anyone who's listening, you can still contact me. My business card has my cell phone number on it. It's 554-6772. Call me if you have issues. I will still respond. I am a public servant. I am a representative, and I will continue to represent my people. Thank you.
I would also like to state that anybody can contact me as well. I don't want anybody to be afraid that anything's going to blow up. I would just say that I proper follow procedure. Mr. Schomer, did I reach out to you concerning Mrs. Lissy's situation?
Yeah, you asked what the if we had a violation, what the status of it was.
Do you remember when that was?
It's last week.
Yeah, it was
I'd have to look it up.
It was a week ago tonight, I remember.
Okay. Yeah.
Same thing. I was tagged on social media to be brought into this. I contacted her. I asked her some general information about what the situation was. And I told her that I would forward that information on to the city manager so he could forward it on to the zoning